welcome back to Weenie Trades. In this video, I'm going to be going over the Qs, and I'm going to be going over Nvidia and AMD. And boy, today I was a little bit hungover, had to cut the stream a little bit early, took a nice good nap, just woke up, and figured, hey, let's break down the Qs and go over Nvidia and AMD. So first up, we got Apple, icar news coming back. So Apple getting into a little bit more industries. Based off the price action, we made new all-time highs today. If you're here on the live stream, we talked about this trade setup right over here over 156, 157, and boom, we got a little bit of a move higher. But Apple, I'll be looking to trade Apple tomorrow and see if we can't press a little bit past 160. So on Apple, targeting something like 160.50, maybe a little bit higher. We'll be seeing and reevaluating that at Weenie Trades Live. So Apple, super bullish. If you missed on the way out, I do think that there may be a dip buy now on Apple at about the 155 level. So if Apple's coming back into 155, 156, I do think that it is a potential dip buy. Not financial advice. I'm just saying I'm looking to see how the price action reacts if we come back into that 155 level on Apple. So Apple, super bullish. Probably by the end of the year, if we just quickly check the trade tab, Apple, I'm just kind of seeing where the option chain sees it. Option chain doesn't see it going too much higher than, 165. So sideways to slightly higher is my bias on Apple. I do think the options might be just a little bit underpriced to the upside. So keep an eye out on Apple. Today, Amazon broke out. Beautiful, ascending triangle, flag pattern, whatever it may be. Yesterday, I was really trying to hammer the Amazon long. And people in the chat were like, it's not meant to be. Amazon's not where it's at. I was like, well, they were right for that day. Any option or equity trade that had a stop order in, boom, they'd come and get it. So Amazon was an expense trade for me yesterday, but today it was actually a really good revenue trade. I said, hey, I'm going long Amazon today. Everybody's going to be asking me about Amazon when it rips. So I accumulated in this little flag pattern, and then boom, we had liftoff. And I took a lot of my profits off on Amazon at 36.32. I thought that was a great move. Amazon, I was like, wow, 1.3% on a Thursday. The market really hasn't been expanding as much, but really that daily chart was the reason why Amazon was so explosive. And shout out to Sample Stuff. I think he was calling Amazon 3,700. It looks like Amazon might be going for new all-time highs now. So Amazon's intrinsic value is pretty high. I think it's about $5,000 a share. So I do think that Amazon is probably going to gravitate upwards. And congratulate to anybody in Amazon heavily. I was trying to really hammer down those option contracts, but the shares were a good trade today. And boy, Amazon keeps on going. So if we look at the daily time frame, watch out for resistance right here, right now. So I am expecting probably maybe a little bit more sideways. Amazon might get a little bit of rotation. Maybe if we gap up, it does a gap and crap back test. But now if you missed Amazon, you can catch it on the way back in. So 36.10 is the dip buy if it's presenting itself on Amazon. Otherwise, I'd expect Amazon, again, to go sideways to slightly higher. So awesome move on Amazon. Briefly checking the option chain for Amazon into the end of the year. I'm just going to grab all strikes over here. What I'm doing right now is I'm looking at the probability of touching right over here. So I'm looking at the probability touch. Right here, there's a 50% chance that Amazon touches about 37.40. So really, oh, that's November 19th. That's tomorrow. So 37.40 tomorrow. But if we go out to December, I'm just grabbing the probability touch of about the 50% mark right over here. And that coincides with about 39.20. So Amazon 4,000 end of year, totally possible. Option chain might be now a little bit more pricey though on the Amazon call options. So really good stuff on Amazon. Next up we got is Google. Google almost hit all-time highs today. 30.11 was the high today. All-time high is 30.12. And again, same with Amazon. Google is just scooping up liquidity yesterday. I'm the low wick, 29.44.80. And that stop was placed beneath the prior day's low. So Google, a little bit of a stop hunt. That's okay though, because they can't get me out of the core position. The core position being with the options contracts. Great little ascending triangle breakout on Google. And again, I place these stop orders. They gobble it up and then they rip. But that's okay because on the options contracts, there's just no stop. So I'm thinking with, stocks like Google and Amazon, I'm just going to just watch the stock. I'm not going to place these stops anymore and just watch them get eaten up. But Google, watch out for Google. A breakout tomorrow could be a pretty explosive. I think we could see Google potentially something as high as like 30.50 tomorrow if we're popping those all-time highs. If we quickly check on something like the trade tab over here on Google, tomorrow Google's only expected to really go as high as like 30.15, but that's right at the all-time high. So if there's extra volume, Google could get a big push upward and you can start getting paid on this call option. So $500 tomorrow might turn into something like $3 to $5 grand. Keeping an eye out on Google tomorrow for the Froggy Friday expiration. And hey, if you don't have $3,000 to buy or trade Google, you have no excuses if you have a margin account because you can trade Google with $111. Everybody is always like, the price of the stock should really not matter, especially when you know what you're doing. But here's an option spread, $29.95 by 3,000. This cost me $111, and it can be worth about $500 if Google is above the short strike at expiration, $3,000 a share. Google's pretty much at that right now. So $100 is about to turn into $500. And it's very important that you should just be a well-rounded trader, at least in my personal opinion, about things you can trade. This Google call option, anybody could have done that. But options have their own inherent risks. I'm not saying it's as easy as that or that happens all the time, but keep an eye out for Google all-time highs. Google into the end of the year, since I've been doing it for all the other tickers, into the end of the year, the 50% probability of touch on Google over here is about $31.50. And I would agree with that. So about $150 higher from here. Google $31.50 end of year could be a possibility. It may even happen a little bit sooner if we get that explosive breakout. So that is Google. Next up we got is Facebook or Meta. And Meta still kind of just going sideways. Talked a lot about this resistance point right here about, I said 355, but 353 was that resistance. Facebook, I am expecting is just a little bit more sideways action still. So not expecting Facebook to really hit all-time highs by the end of the year. If we quickly check the option chain for Facebook, Facebook's saying, yeah, about 360. And I would agree with that. Facebook's basically saying, hey, 360 is that kind of 50% touch mark on the upside. We'll see how Facebook reacts into the future. But otherwise, Facebook would be pretty bearish if it was coming underneath 320. But I expect Facebook to probably stay above 330, but beneath, 350 for a couple of weeks. So Facebook, just expecting a little bit of sideways action. I can always reevaluate that at Weenie Trades Live, but Facebook, the opportunity is not as interesting on Meta as it is for the other tech stocks. So next up we got is Netflix. Netflix yesterday hit a new all-time high, 700. I was saying, hey, we can probably see that 700 print. Boom, we hit that 700 and immediately pulled back. Today was probably the dip buy for Netflix. We'll see. If it wasn't, Netflix is probably going to go sideways to slightly lower. If I quickly check the trade grid for Netflix into the end of the year, Netflix, that 50% touch mark, probably about 725. And yeah, that seems about fair, right? So 725 on the upside. So I'm still leaning a little bit more bullish on Netflix. Otherwise, Netflix, you wouldn't want it violating this 640 area. Otherwise, there is a little bit of a dip buy at about 660. So if Netflix is coming into 661, 662, probably could be a pretty good dip buy. Not financial advice. See how it bounces or reacts at that level. So Netflix, sideways to slightly lower as far as I can see right now. Otherwise, if you're going for a breakout, the breakout is probably over 690. So if you see Netflix above 690 again, we might be seeing new all-time highs in the next day or so. So interesting to see how these tech stocks are reacting. Briefly, I want to touch on Nvidia. They killed it on earnings. These purple lines represent the expected move. And Nvidia, a great trade, I should say. I did actually swing trade some options pre-earnings, spreads though, and defined risk. So I swing traded an option spread. It cost me $53. And boom, closed out that option spread for 2.1. So $210 off of $53. That was the most I could lose, though, is $53. And boom, first thing in the morning. Later in the day, I was saying, hey, Nvidia, it's already kind of a little bit past the expected move. Whenever we go past the expected move, we usually try to drift towards it. And look, we started to drift towards this purple line, the edge of the expected move. Where do we find support? just the edge of the expected move and bounced off that level. So Nvidia, moving forward, as long as we're above the edge of the expected move, I expect some sideways action, but I am leaning bullish into next week. It just might need some time to potentially get rotated out of. So sideways first, but then next week expecting a little bit more upwards action. Stocks that make new all-time highs tend to continue to make all-time highs. No guarantees, but that's just where the momentum is. And the momentum's strongly to the upside. It's a really good move on Nvidia today. Next up we got is AMD, and AMD new all-time highs. What a beast. Just kind of like Nvidia. And same thing. AMD, I would expect a little bit more sideways to slightly lower. This is just running up in sympathy. I love using that word, sympathy. It's like it's sympathizing with Nvidia, and investors are sympathizing with AMD and buying it. And yeah, AMD going sideways to slightly lower is probably the most likely scenario. Awesome new all-time highs, still a bull. I just want to, find some better prices to dip buy on AMD. So that's just my take on it. If you're still holding a big position on AMD up here, in my opinion, that's a little bit greedy, but sometimes greed can be rewarded pretty well in the market. So we'll see, but still. AMD, just briefly checking the option chain. Forgot to do that for Nvidia. We'll go back real quick. 170 by the end of the year is probably that stretch target. And I would agree. That makes logical sense, right? So 170 is that upside point. Briefly, the downside point would be about 139. And that I think that is just as likely, this 139, as the 170 on AMD into the end of the year. So keep an eye out on that. Briefly, I just want to go back to NVDA, and go to the trade tab right over here. And Nvidia into December, probability touch 285. That's on the downside. That's reasonable. On the upside, Nvidia, about 350. So these are just general areas to potentially look at taking profits. So 350 Nvidia, yeah, that makes about reasonable sense. One quick note, another reason why I swing traded Nvidia before the earnings report was because the option skew was saying Nvidia was not likely to sell off into the report. It said that there was only like a 40% chance that we touched something like 270. And I thought that was odd considering we were so close to 270. And so what do I do when there's a skew? I like to profit off of that skew and take those hints and turn them into cash. Now, it was just a hint, but just something to potentially think about. The option chain, for example, on HUT was pricing in a sell-off, which is why I was selling a little bit of HUT in the 15s. Despite wanting to build my position more, the option chain skew was to the downside. So it's really important to understand how to read an options chain, how to understand skew, how it affects how a stock might move. It was an awesome trading day today. I know a lot of Weenie members killed it. They absolutely killed it. There's a lot of posts in the Flex channel. We've got people making tons of money on Googs. We got people making tons of money on Amazon. Best trade ever, 12K, almost doubled. If you're not trading long tech, or you weren't long tech today, that's okay. You don't need to be trading the exact same things as us, but I think there's some great opportunities today. The dip buy at the low of the day for the IWM, whatever it may be. And yeah, just super awesome. Everybody killing it. That's all I want. That's what Weenie Trades is all about. That's what being on YouTube and doing anything that helps other people is all about. You want to see people killing it. You want to see people making money. I don't want to just hide in my corner and just crank out the dough, and be all alone. So trading's great when you have a community, and I think Weenie Trades is an awesome community. And shout out to the community. I think they just made the Weenie Trades LLC channel monetized. So yay! Let's do a little applause. Yay! Some super exciting stuff. Lots of fun new content coming out in the future now that we've made it. That's all I have for today. Thanks for tuning in. See ya.